This is the final part in my series on finding the ultimate shop light. I've been on this quest for years, and if you've worked on cars very much, you know where I'm coming from. You're going to have a smile on your face, and you say, "Oh yeah, Ken, I've been there too." Well, a lot has happened in the last few years, and it's primarily due to LED lights. I've got a situation here where I'm working on the front of this engine. I'm down inside working on some of the pulleys and replacing the serpentine belt, and it's dark down in there, even with my overhead shop light on. Now, I could go get my trusty flashlight, which, years ago, this is was my go-to light, primarily because I could put it on the engine and kind of adjust it where I wanted it to shine down where I was working. And of course, I've tried the headlamps. I know a lot of you like those headlamps, but I don't. They're kind of uncomfortable, and you got to be kind of constantly moving your head. What I was after was a light that would just light up the whole area I'm working on. Not be in the way, wouldn't trip over it and knock it over all the time, wouldn't get too hot like a lot of these halogens. So if you kind of want to know a little bit more about where I'm coming from, I want you to look at my previous videos where I talk about the frustrations and some of the things I attempted to do on my own. In fact, I had to build my own light. So I'm going to put links in the show more below, and go ahead and take a look at those previous videos. And I think you'll find them entertaining, to say the least. But this is what I've come up with, which is what I consider the ideal shop light for working in close confinement. Okay, that's down inside the engine compartment. It's under the dash of the car. And of course, you've gotten some of these older LED lights that are on extension cords, and they just, what? These aren't very bright. You want something that's really bright, and you want something that doesn't get hot, and you want something that doesn't, burn out when you knock it or kick it over while you're working under the car. So look at the previous videos. You'll already get to see this in a couple of demonstrations, and I'm going to show it to you now. I'm going to let you see what I'm working on down in here, and then I'm going to show you a couple different lights, and then I'm going to let you see what I've finally come up with. And it's not just one light, okay? It's 2 or 3 lights which make up what I consider the ultimate shop light. So here you can see the area I'm working on, way down in the front of the engine there. And I'll bring back my trusty flashlight. You can see, I can get some light here, but once again, it's kind of focused. I'll have to kind of set the flashlight where I want it, and then I'll have to keep moving it around, see, as I'm working on the different pulleys. I've got a belt tensioner to replace, I've got an idler pulley to replace, and I'm going to be routing this serpentine belt back on all the pulleys, which you need a wide light there. So the flashlight, yeah, it'll work, but it's kind of a hassle. Now I want to show you that what I call the first generation of these LED shop lights, which I think are almost a joke. Here's one here that I think I paid like $40 for a number of years back when LEDs first came out. Look at this light. It's not any better, it's probably worse than the flashlight. I've got to, maybe I can hang it up here, but it doesn't do anything. So what I have to do is stick it down here like this. Now granted, it doesn't get hot, but you can see that this certainly wasn't the answer, and I was really disappointed in a lot of what I consider these early LED shop lights. So this one I don't use anymore. Maybe I can sell it on eBay. Now let's take a look at the one I built that I showed in the previous videos. A couple things about this one: it has a super strong magnetic base, so I can put it right on this core support. It's highly adjustable. The head like this I can adjust. Now watch what happens when I turn it on. Look at that. You see, it lights up the whole area, the whole front of the engine compartment. And I can move it around so it's kind of out of the way. I can twist the head and kind of focus where I want it. Now I can get in here and work, and the light's not even in the way. And if I bump the light like this, well, it's not going to fall over, and it's got a knockover. Granted, it won't stick to aluminum, but if you're careful, you know, well, it's kind of difficult here because you gotta you can, if you don't have metal to put it on, you got to do the same thing that I did with the flashlight. So one of the downsides to this light is you do need steel to put it on so that you can really manipulate it and really expect it to stay in place. Now, I'm going to show you. I'm not going to explain the whole details in it. I'm not going to give you part numbers. I'm not going to tell you how to make it, because if you're watching this video, some of these parts may have changed, may not be available anymore, but at least I'll show you what I did here in the theory behind this light. I started out by finding the most powerful and the smallest 12-volt automotive LED light I could find. And this is a fog light that mounts onto the bumpers. It's aftermarket. This has a rugged aluminum case. It has 2, 4, 6 LEDs, and this thing's really bright. I wanted 12 volts because I wanted to be able to power it with a battery. And of course, I wanted a stand, and here you see this stand with a heavy magnetic base. Now, I was fortunate enough to find a light that had an incandescent shroud bulb in it, and I just threw that away. And then I figured out how to mount this 12-volt LED fog light. And then, of course, you can see here I put a switch on it so I could turn it on and off. But the whole secret to make this work is this particular battery here. Since I fly RC aircraft and RC helicopters, I'm very familiar with lithium polymer batteries. This one is 11.2 volts, but I can also run a 14-volt battery if I want to really get this light bright. But these batteries are very efficient for the weight. There's no other battery. I can't, put a motorcycle battery. If I hook it up with a long cord to a battery, a car battery or a booster, then I've got the problem of tripping over the cord. So for a lot of you, this won't be the answer unless you have access to these lithium polymer batteries. You know how to charge them because they require special chargers. But since I already have these batteries, this is probably the best battery that I can put on this lamp and really get the light out of it, and it'll last a long time. And you can see I put it on with a Velcro strap. So I thought, wow, if there's some way you could manufacture these, of course, then the person who would get them would have to deal with the lithium polymer batteries. So I realized that not everybody's going to want a rechargeable light just because of some of the hassles of charging associated with it. So let's take a look at a couple other things I've come up with. My next challenge was to find a stand light that would do some of the same things that smaller light would do in terms of not overheating, lots of light, wouldn't get damaged if you knock it over. And this is what I came up with right here. These are 2 LED lights. These are the type of lights that you mount on the top of a cab on a four-wheeler to light up the woods at night. Well, these are very powerful. This stand, by the way, is a movie light stand. You can buy these fairly inexpensively on eBay or Amazon. It's just a movie light stand. The nice thing about it is, look at the height adjustment. It can go way up, and it also, if I want, I can get it way, way down here, say. And if I'm looking at just shining a specific part of the light, or I'm under the car, this one works really well, by the way. If you're working on the dash in the front of the car, you can put this kind of in the back door shining forward, and it really lights up the inside of the car if you're working on it. So what I did is once again, I got a switch, hooked these two together, and then I've got my lithium polymer battery right here. See that? A larger battery that's 14 volts. Now watch what happens when I light up the engine compartment with this one. You could wire this so that you could turn on one light or both lights, but I just wired it to turn on both lights at the same time. Look at the amount of light I have. Now, the problem here is if I want to get down in there, I've got to tip the light forward, so that's kind of a disadvantage. But this is really handy because it's 12 volt, doesn't require a cord. I can grab this and go anywhere with it and have some really good light very quickly. But once again, you're dealing with lithium polymer batteries. Now what I did here is I have a plug, the standard cigarette lighter plug, so I could plug this into a cigarette lighter in the car with my extension, or I could plug it into my battery booster that I could carry around. But once again, that's another little thing that you have to deal with. I even thought of getting a motorcycle battery, a small 12-volt battery that you get on most lawnmower equipment, motorcycles, and mount it down here. That would make it heavier and keep it from, you know, getting kicked over. But once again, you got the issue with battery maintenance, battery charging, and so on. So what I decided to do was, okay, just recently I said, let's go back and take another look at the commercially available 120 volt LED lights and see if there isn't anything I could do with those to make a really good shop light. Okay, after getting online, looking at what was currently available on the market, looking at some reviews, this is a light I settled on, made by Snap-on. And it doesn't produce as much light as that twin tower that I just showed you, but this is very well built unit. And when you has a seal switch, you turn the light on, you can see that you get quite a bit of light from this LED. Way better than that one I showed you earlier that I bought a number of years ago. Now this is a great light, but the problem is, how do you use it with this stand? I mean, how am I gonna, you know, I can try to put it over here, but it doesn't really tilt that much and it falls over. So really, when you buy this light, this is only really good for putting on the ground. Like if you're doing brake work or working on your shocks or something where you can set this on the ground and light up the underside of the wheel well or under the car. But as far as working in the engine compartment, I figured maybe I could rig something up, you know, to hook it up overhead and go like this. But no. So you see, the light's okay, but the delivery's not very good, in my humble opinion. Having this stand doesn't really make it a really good shop light for working on cars. So, back to the light stand. Let me show you what I came up with. I got another movie light stand off eBay. Once again, I can take this up as high as I want it. I bolted this right on the top of the stand. All right. So you see, I can move this in. There's been times, you know, it has the same limitations as tipping it, but if I move it over here like this, I can light up down in that part of the engine right there. So this one, once again, is not as bright as that twin LED 12 volter that I showed you earlier, but this is a really nice light. And we've kicked this over a couple times and it doesn't burn out. Try that with a halogen light. So this works great when I just want to light up the engine compartment. I just want to get under the car and light up under the car. This one is great. I got a cord. You're still going to have to deal with the cord on this one. Okay. But for a lot of people, that's easier than dealing with 12-volt batteries that have to be maintained and charged. So this is something that you're going to have to decide on your own as you go search your own ideal shop light. What do you want? Think through what you want. So for what I want, as I conclude this series, the ultimate shop light is 3 lights. Okay, for me. That's for me. For the type of work I do on cars in this shop, 3 lights have provided the needs that I need. And that's this small hand light with a magnetic base. Look at the power and width of the light beam on that one. Then I have my 12-volt portable light stand with 2 very high-powered LEDs. Look at how it lights up the engine compartment. And then, of course, I have the Snap-on commercially available 120-volt light mounted on a movie light stand. So there you have it. I'm finally happy after all these years. I finally have the light that I need. And just look at some of the places that you can use this. Maybe working way back in the back of an engine compartment, back behind the intake manifolds, trying to get to some sensor or something. Imagine how frustrating it is to not have the light you need and then to be able to light that thing up so you can really get to the parts and replace them, because light is a really key factor when doing work on cars.